Number 1. My sister and I were staying in an old historic hotel in the middle of nowhere in Montana. My sister loves this place, and she has visited this place many times over the years. While we were staying in the hotel one night, I was kept all night by someone pacing around the hardwood floors in their room above ours. It drove me crazy, and I couldn't go to sleep. In the morning, I asked my sister how she could sleep through all that noise. She looked at me confused and told me that upstairs of the building used to be a ballroom, but now it's carpeted and empty. The hotel staff confirmed that nobody was up there anymore. Even if they were, I wouldn't have heard the heels on the hardwood floor. Number 2. I was at a slumber party in 8th grade with a few of my friends, and we decided, stupidly, to have a seance in her unfinished basement. We were having fun giggling as we were trying to figure out who to summon when someone suggested Jack the Ripper, the serial killer from 1800s, and immediately got pit in my stomach. No, I spoke up. We shouldn't summon something evil,
That's right.
called a man's voice from the other side of the cellar. Mind you, there were no boys or men. We were home alone. Another girl and myself heard it. We still don't know what it was or who it was. And that's the last time we played the seance. Number 3. My family traveled to the south of France to stay at a cottage owned by someone my dad worked with. The owners visited occasionally, but the summer it was free and we had 10 days booked over there. We went into the house and chose rooms. The house was drafty and cold from lack of use. We settled in and turned all the heating on. Yet the house remained cold and felt damp. The first night, we had a fire in the living room and listened to a couple of audiobooks before my sister and I went to sleep. My parents stayed up a little longer and then went to bed. Around midnight, they both woke up at the same time, and the door of their bedroom was opening slowly. At first, they thought it was my little sister until they saw a large, dark silhouette of a man framed in the doorway, standing stock still, looking in their direction as I was appraising them. After a short period, the shape turned and started to move, as if it was satisfied, and it disappeared. They looked at each other, but didn't speak, and both went back to bed. The next morning, the house felt warm and dry, and the sunlight was back through the windows. We still don't know what my parents saw, and they don't talk about it, but whatever it was, it seemed welcoming, but still very, very strange. Number 4. When I was a kid, we lived in a haunted house. Strange things happen all the time. For example, my dad and I were alone in the kitchen one day, making a snack. We got what we wanted out of the fridge and returned and walked back to the counter, and our plate flew off the kitchen counter and broke on the floor. My dad tried to calm me down by saying the plate must have flown out the counter, but let's face it, the plate wasn't even around the edge of the counter. I also woke up to an old lady standing by my bed more than one occasion. I told myself I was dreaming. This part might be dark, but here's the rest of the story. Years later, I looked up the address and found out that an old couple lived there for many years, right before we moved in. Apparently, the house was broken into and the old woman was raped and murdered. The old man sold the house and moved. We were the first occupant since the incident. We only lived there about a year. My parents swear we moved so quickly because we got a better deal on another house nearby, but we know it was because of the house was haunted. It was later told that my parents did bring a priest home before they moved, and the priest told them, to move right away. This place is not for you. Number 5. In college, I was part of the drama club, and we used 100-years-old opera house in downtown Maine as our theater. So, I was alone doing work on a set for our next show. And of course, being in a theater alone is creepy as it is anyway. This theater was old enough to have wooden walkways above the stage that went from one side to another. As I am painting, I could sworn I heard someone run across multiple times. I try to block that out, but it's nearly impossible. Just as I am about to finish, I hear something fall above the stage. Even though I couldn't find anything, it convinced me that enough that I was done for the day. It turns out there's a ghost of an opera singer, and her ghost still haunts the opera house. Number 6. Okay, get ready for the story. So I was about closing up the bar one night after a long shift. As I'm carrying a rack of glasses into the kitchen, I slipped on the wet floor that I just mopped. Immediately I fell. I was sitting on the wet floor. I hear a low-pitched moan. It was so audible that I actually thought it was a real person. This was startling, considering I was the only person left in the bar. I stood up, completely frozen, and yelled, "Hello?" Again, immediately, I hear same low-pitched moan, except this time it was louder. Now I'm starting to freak out a little bit. I decide to walk closer to where I heard the sound was coming from. I yell very loudly, "Hello?" For the third time. I now hear a very loud, low-pitched moan. That was it for me. I ran back to the kitchen, grabbed the biggest kitchen knife that I could find, because at the time I thought it was logical. I grabbed my purse and ran out of the door, and never looked back. It was funny trying to explain this to my chef the next day. He was missing a knife during his morning prep. Here comes the creepy part. Apparently the owner of the restaurant's son was working in the kitchen one day when he slipped on wet floor. And as he did, there was a knife that fell on him, slashing his throat, killing him. Number 7. This is a very quick story, very short, and it's still happening. And I don't know what to do about it. Here we go. So sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and my roommate is giggling and playing with my hair. And in the morning, when I ask what she's doing, she says she doesn't remember. It's been happening for past 3 months. Number 8. My house was a fraught with weird stuff happening when we first moved in. The kitchen table would move overnight, 12 to 18 inches. My keys would disappear and show up in the weird places. My son, Chris, went into the basement and things came flying off the shelf at him. He also saw someone walking around our porch, but no one was there. The most obvious one was a few years ago. This happened twice. I was sweeping the kitchen floor. The door to the porch started shaking uncontrollably. It was like someone was trying to open the door without turning the knob. It lasted about 15 seconds. I knew it was bad because my dogs, who will bark at a butterfly flying past the window, all looked up at the door and stepped back. Both times it happened, I was doing the same thing, about the same time, at night. We still live in the same house, and this still continues to happen. I have tried talking to them, whoever it is, like, please stop moving our kitchen table, and it will stop for a brief time, and then it'll start happening again. I have learned to deal with it now, and live with whatever we are living with.